Hey, you guys, it's Chappie from Task Force 70. We're here on our first podcast, so this will be a unique thing for all of us, and we appreciate your patience. Like all of you, we watch lots of podcasts, but we really think that it's important that we communicate some stuff not only from the open kimono philosophy that we have. We're a nonprofit, so we want to put as much of what we're doing out there, but we also want to educate not only cops but the general public and how small town agencies actually work. So if you don't mind liking, subscribing, I won't insult your intelligence. You guys know how to do all that stuff. So today we're talking with Zach Newton. Zach is a former state trooper for a long period of time, full-time SWAT guy, and has recently transitioned because he moved his family and stuff, transitioned down to a small department. And having known myself what a culture shock that can be, I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to educate the public and large city cops on the realities of working in a small agency. Not necessarily the politics and those kinds of things, but mostly focused on the training specifically, like what challenges we face. So, amongst other things, that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. So, I'd like to go ahead and loop in Zach. Zach, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
So, guys, Zach is a longtime cop. He's somewhat internet famous, from what I understand. I'm just old enough that I'm not on Instagram, so I have no idea who's famous anymore.
Yeah.
But a lot of you guys will already know Zach and know who he is. Um, so I had an opportunity to meet Zach last week for the first time. We flowed in the same circles in the law enforcement world, but we hadn't had a chance to train together before. And Task Force 70 went and did an MTT, a mobile training team in the county where he works, and an opportunity to meet him. And it was pretty interesting from my perspective, and I'm sure we'll get into this down the road, but to hear his perspective, having recently been at a large full-time SWAT team coming down to a small department where like all hands on deck all the time, and being responsible for training in a large agency and now seeing the training reality in a small agency as well. One of the purposes of the foundation is to really the primary purpose of the foundation is to provide as much training and as much mentorship to these small departments who don't have the resourcing that they need to get the guys where they need to be to serve their communities the way their communities expect. Zach's also got a unique perspective in some of the challenges faced that aren't just with the big stuff, but with the small stuff too. So, Zach, if you don't mind, if you can introduce yourself to the world and tell them a little bit about yourself, and we'll move on from there.
Yeah. So Zach Newton, going on my 18th year in law enforcement, started at a small
Mhm.
agency, which is where I'm at now. Started in corrections, worked the road as a deputy, worked
Mhm.
narcotics, done that as a detective. Went to a large agency to be a state trooper. While I was there, worked the road, did the full-time SWAT thing, was on the
Mhm.
bomb squad. Went to the training division for several years after that,
Mhm.
where myself and the unit that I was working with were in charge of pretty much all the firearms training for roughly 1,500 people a year.
Mhm.
And then recently, I'm back at a small agency, and
Mhm.
it's been a huge culture shock in many different ways. So it's been
Right.
interesting. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much me.
Having lived that life, it's almost worse working in a small agency and then going to a big agency and then coming back to a small agency. Because when you worked in the
Yeah,
small agency the first time, you don't know what you don't know, right?
right.
You're acclimated to the environment that you're in. You go to a
Yep,
big department, work there for a long time, and it just becomes that's what's normal. Every agency probably does this, right?
right.
So um, you also do open enrollment and contract training as well, right? Can you tell us a little
Correct.
bit about that?
Yeah, so I owned a previous company called Ripcord Industries, Ripcord Training Group.
Hmm.
So I'm the thing with me being famous on the Instagram, I think that's just by guilty by association type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the cool guy. I just got to hang out with the cool guys a lot.
Right.
So had that company for a little while, sold it. Now, recently just purchased a company called RaidWorks.
Mm-hmm.
We do some government contracts as far as training goes,
Mm-hmm.
military contracts, law enforcement, and open enrollment. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty much anything to do with pistol, carbine, tactics, you name it. We can, if we've got a very diverse cadre that can
Mm-hmm.
teach almost anything, but if we can't teach it, if it's not something we offer, we try and recommend it
Mm-hmm.
to other companies, because I'm not
Sure.
the type of person. I'm not going to come out here and try and sell you something and just make some stuff up. If I don't know, I
Right.
will tell you I do not know, but I probably know a guy that does.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's
And
pretty much
that's
it.
that's really the beauty of the firearms instructor tribe. Now there are parts of it that,
Yeah,
whatever, but eh, in the main, it's guys who want to do the right thing, right? But they got
yeah,
to make a living. So,
exactly.
uh, that's part of one of many things that led us down the road to make the foundation. Is there's a lot of guys who know about companies like yours, companies like my old companies, or there's so much good training available, but making 16 bucks an hour with two new kids,
Yeah,
working in a small agency where they can't afford to give you the time off because
yeah,
they can't afford the overtime in their budget to cover your time when you're off, so your
yeah.
leave doesn't get approved or whatever. Like
Hmm.
thousands of those issues, and there's a lot of those dudes who really need training. So that's kind of the
Absolutely.
purpose of the foundation.
Yeah,
Not only to provide it, but once we're providing it at full performance, farming it out, guys want to take a particular class with a particular instructor. That's why the foundation is here, right? They
absolutely.
contact us and, hey, I really want to go take a class with Zach, but I can't afford even the discounted rate, and I can't afford to travel there, whatever. That's really the purpose of the foundation, and that's why we need the public support.
Yes.
Um, so I appreciate you kind of backfilling us on your history. Um,
Yeah.
I'd like to start by talking about, um, how have you seen, especially being not only a full-time guy in a big agency, but a full-time tactical guy and trainer in a big agency. I see from traveling around teaching and being in departments, uh, the last 15 or 20 years, I've seen an exponential growth in the quality of the training in those big agencies.
Yeah,
Have you seen the same thing? And
absolutely.
what do you think is driving that? I think I know, but I'm really interested in what you think why the big agencies are getting so much better at training their guys, because they are, the large agencies are.
Absolutely, they are. I think it's a multitude of things. I think one,
Hmm.
obviously, funding is always going to be one
Hmm.
of the things that drives that. Um, Another thing, I think once the war in Iraq, obviously, we've talked about
Hmm.
how military and law enforcement share tactics back and forth.
Hmm.
I think um, that war drove a lot of our tactics, and I think now a lot of our tactics are starting to drive military
Hmm.
operations and the way they do things.
Yep.
And then I think there's also a wave with culture, right? You've
Hmm.
got all these companies, Instagram started coming around.
Hmm.
The cool thing was to shoot bill drills on Instagram or
Hmm.
whatever and record that stuff. So I think it's a multitude, a layer of things that kind of drives that stuff, and I'm
Hmm.
glad it has. But it can also be a double-edged knife. I'm never going to say you can have too much training, but I would caution you that there's just as many bad techniques as there are
Hmm.
good techniques out there. So
Yep. Well, and that's a challenge that we've seen since social media became a thing. I was unfortunate enough to already have a training company when social media became a thing.
yeah,
And one of the challenges I saw immediately was the proliferation of half-assery,
hmm,
um, kind of promoted. I never knock somebody for trying. Like
yeah,
if you may have something good, but the way human psychology works, especially males between about 16 and 27, 28 years old, first thing they hear is what it is,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
that's been the monster that we've been fighting in the training business for a long time, and I know you've fought the same thing. It
Yeah.
also Social media encourages teamism. The first thing you saw something from, that guy looks cool.
Mhm.
Um, Anybody who disagrees with him is obviously, the opposing football team.
Right.
And, so that's a that's a cultural challenge that I think is going to take 30 or 40 years to probably fix.
Yeah.
Now we can all, and a lot of people on the right side of the tribe are, and I just did it, but a lot of people on the right side of the tribe um, are becoming much more subtle and wise in their advice
Yeah.
regarding somebody comes to class. It's very common. Somebody comes to class, they're doing something a certain way, especially cops.
Yeah.
And we'll get into some weeds about how cops train, but they come with thinking this is how it's done, and they're getting better we are getting better at teaching instead of you're a bag
Yeah.
of stuff and
Yeah.
you just need to leave. We're getting better at, hey, bro, I know you saw that. I know why you're doing that. Let me show you an alternative that may work out better given your mission context. Because there is, you and I have talked about this. It's one of my tables that I pound on. There is so much good training within the GWAT cocoon, and
Hmm.
there is so much of it that is absolutely not applicable to law enforcement.
Absolutely.
So, like picking those out, there's some phenomenal GWAT trainers. Uh, Pat Rogers, my mentor, was one of them. There's Chris
Hmm.
Love is great at this. Chuck Pressberg is good at this. You're good at this. Picking out this is not applicable because, or this is applicable because. Uh, can you kind of talk through it if you have a strategy for guys to perceive the training that they see or that they're getting? How do you suggest they um, kind of filter as a cop, especially a small town cop who doesn't have a lot of time, a lot of resources to train? How do you? There's so much information. How do you filter that kind of information to maximize your own takeaways from those things?
So, so the way I got into Raid Works was I was actually
Hmm.
the only law enforcement guy on the Raid Works team as a law
Hmm.
enforcement consultant because
Hmm.
all of those guys were military, most of them
Hmm.
MARSOC guys.
Right.
And we needed a tool or a person as a tool to disseminate that information and be like, hey, man,
Hmm.
that's cool. But
Hmm.
we can't do that over here. We've done some
Right.
training, some night vision stuff with some Navy SEALs guys when I was on a full-time team. And,
Hmm.
they were trying to teach us how to wake people up. I'm like, man, there's a thing
Hmm.
like knock and announce. So
Right.
I think the majority of it is context and
Hmm.
understanding, with the social media stuff and the marketing, like, right,
Hmm.
these companies, whether they realize it or not, right, wrong, or indifferent, they
Hmm.
will use a video, a 5-minute video, and it's a marketing strategy to sell a
Hmm.
product.
Right.
That product may not be information or good information. It may
Hmm.
be a soft good or a hard good or something like that.
Hmm.
Someone that can't recognize that just sees it, right?
Hmm.
They may take that as the gospel. Like, I seen how that guy hit this door in this video, not knowing
Hmm.
that, like, man, this was just a cool guy video just to highlight a
Hmm.
product and market a strategy to market the product.
Right.
Versus you have some companies that do this very well. They will market the information in which they are
Hmm.
putting out, which is what you're trying to get to the student essentially.
Right.
So you kind of have to differentiate between, is it a marketing video for a product
Hmm.
that isn't information, or is the
Hmm.
actual product information that's potentially going to save lives, or vice versa?
Right. And I
Um,
think I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
Continue.
you're good. No, you're good. Um, I learned that just through experience, I guess you would say. I've been to a lot of classes. You've been to a lot of classes. I've been to just as many classes where I took away bad information or didn't take
Hmm.
away the information I was hoping for, as I
Right.
have that I went to really good classes.
Right.
Um, and the dynamic in teaching, as far as the knife hand, hey,
Hmm.
so and so don't do that. The old military mentality where we just they get
Hmm.
sideways in you. We've kind of seen, hey, that's doesn't necessarily translate with everybody on this side of the pond, right?
Hmm.
Now it may have to get to that point if you try these steps first, but let's
Right.
see if we can make them understand first what they actually done wrong instead of insulting them.
Hmm.
I try. I really like your teaching style, and hopefully we'll get into that here in a little bit. But I try and it's a serious day, but we're going to have fun because I
Hmm.
found that if people are having fun, they're
Hmm.
more relaxed and they're retaining information. That's what I need them to do, right?
Especially if they were told to be there.
Exactly.
The
If they're
big
forced to
trick
be.
with law enforcement training,
Yes.
guys are told to go.
Yep.
And the goal is not for me to feed my dopamine addiction. The goal is
Right.
for them to walk away with the information that we're trying to give them so that they can retain
Yep.
it. So, yeah,
Exactly.
that's the good point.
And
So,
as a good teacher and instructor, that's where your dopamine should come from. The
mhm,
most excited you will ever see me is when the light bulb in the student just goes
mhm,
off. That's my dopamine rush, man. So
exactly. Exactly. Especially with a kid that especially the big five. So the foundation, this, but the audience might not. Task Force 70 Foundation has a big five, right? Constitutional judgment, marksmanship, breaching, medical skills, and tactics. There's lots of other skills that small town cops need that they don't get, but those are the five that we can actually influence with our skill set and our abilities, right? So that's what we're touching. These kids, um, they're told to be there, and some of it some of it's difficult, like to do it right. Um,
it's very difficult.
it just in my limited experience, I think that um, teaching with the teaching with the open hand, so to speak, especially with cops. Uh, it's not whether or not they like me that matters. It's whether or not they're going to retain what I'm trying to give them, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely.
So, so I'd like to come back to something you brought up that I see as a unnoticed issue. It's not really an issue. It's just a thing for people to recognize. So, um, the difference between male and female psychology is very similar to the difference between um, assaulters and administrators, if that makes sense. So, and I'm not calling administrators women, but um, men think of things and women think of concepts and emotions, right?
Mhm.
So, if we apply that psychology to street cops and administrators, um, street cops tend to think about if they're doing it right, they're thinking about tactics and um, officer safety, priority of life, things like that. Administrators, kind of by necessity, are thinking about equipment and budgets. So there is a trend that's been going for 10 or 15 years, and it's part of the damage that the grant funding system, the federal grant funding system is set up. It's one of the dangers is it really encourages replacement of skill with equipment. That's an opinion, but I really think that's a thing. Um, and it's not unreasonable for an administrator to get an email from whatever groups he belongs to, and DOJ is saying, "Hey, we'll give you, X $100,000 to get this new thing, right? This new computer program for your report writing, and all that's required is that you let us be on the inside of your reporting system, for instance." To the to the administrator, he needs a reporting program or a gun or a breaching tool, or less lethal tools were the big offender in this. So let's switch to that example. He gets an email that, hey, we need, we've got these great whiz bang, you'll never have to shoot anybody again, less lethal tools. And, they're absolutely free to you. And, we'll even send a trainer and we got it. And all their training hours for that year, uh, first of all, their training hours are reduced because we already went through a class that covers less lethal stuff. Like 3 years ago, old Billy Bob went through the instructor school. He can walk us all through the PowerPoint over an hour, and there's 4 hours of training done, right? We fixed a training problem with equipment. Uh, Most of those circumstances, and the longer you've been in the business long enough, the policing business long enough to know that every problem that we are forced to encounter has a constitutional underpinning, and that's the important skill to have. And the de-escalation skills and like the use of force skills are important, but those are kind of the last step, and they're the easiest thing to teach. So when the guys get a minimal amount of training, they can um, they can kind of maximize the value of that through equipment. uh, I know that that was a long diatribe, but it is going to a question. My question is, if you are supporting an agency, um, or an agency is looking to, they've identified a problem. What's all that was my opinion. I'm interested in your opinion on, uh, is the important thing to start with the knowledge and skills, or is it equipment, or is it a mixture of both?
Think in the beginning, it has to be information.
Hmm.
There again, context, right?
Hmm.
You can, and we've talked, we've talked about this on just firearms as an example.
Hmm.
I love staccato. I've had three
Hmm.
staccatos. I've sold every one of them, right?
Hmm.
Because I had to teach with a Glock.
Hmm.
Think the approach that a lot of people, cops, agencies, etc., take is
Hmm.
you want a Lamborghini, but you don't understand how to put it in drive.
Hmm.
It does no good to have the Lamborghini if you don't know how to drive it. So that's kind of the
Right.
analogy that I use, to where information is first and foremost. We need the
Hmm.
information. We need the context behind why we need um, or what the issue is that needs to be solved. Based off of my experience, I would say 80% of law enforcement specifically
Hmm.
don't ever get to a level proficiency wise to where the equipment starts to matter. I think at a certain
Hmm.
level, that's where the equipment starts to matter, depending on what you're
Hmm.
dealing with, what category it is.
Right.
But I 100% agree that the information has to be first and foremost.
Hmm.
Then, once we get to that level to where, hey, we've maxed out the information piece,
Hmm.
now in order to take this any higher, any further, we have to up our equipment, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
It
So,
does, absolutely. I really think that's the right way to think about it. And
absolutely.
not I love staccato. I've got one, etc.
Yeah.
But I don't teach with them for a reason.
Yep.
And I love those guys. It's phenomenal piece of
They're great
equipment,
people. Yes.
and they're great. More importantly, they're great people.
Hmm.
The vast majority, over 90% of cops, won't gain any at the level they're at because of the training that's available to them,
Yep.
that they're provided. Uh, they haven't maximized the Glock or the Smith and Wesson. Uh, they're shooting an M&P or they're shooting a Glock. They need to maximize that. And there's dozens of categories of equipment that I've found that are very similar, breaching tools or medical equipment. We give these guys, Stop the Bleed has done a great job across the country,
Yes. Yes,
getting
they have.
guys trained up, right? There's still some gap there, which is why it's
Hmm.
still one of our big five for the foundation. They are, the Narcan program has done great.
Yes.
I see at least 50%. I just came off of full-time work again, dropped down to reserve. But working patrol, uh, I can't tell you the percentage, but it's approaching 50% of Narcan doses that were unnecessary.
Yep.
Not really going to hurt anybody, but it's more of an example of like not everything is an equipment fix. Some things are a knowledge of first aid fixes in the medical side, like knowing what you're looking at based on the circumstance and behavior and et cetera is the type of skill or knowledge that the guys need, if that makes sense. Can't be fixed with equipment initially. So I really like your advice too, and I think it's one that we should take to heart is maximize your knowledge base capability first and then start layering equipment on as you can. Whatever equipment, the smaller the department, whatever equipment you have right now, you can make work. It's not optimal, but and that's kind of why we're teaching what we're teaching is maximize what you got. So that's excellent. Um, I'd like to talk just a little bit about an after action. So let me give the audience some context so that your after action on the MTT kind of makes some sense. So Task Force 70 is a nonprofit foundation that exists to train small agencies like the agency that you work at now. We provide that service in three ways. We have a facility, a campus that we are in the middle of building that is kind of the primary effort of the foundation is to bring guys in from across the country and train them on two different classes on two different skill problems that we see are pretty universal and there's a serious need for it nationally. So one of them is patrol tactics, the other one is patrol hostage rescue. um, Sometime I'll do a video on the real nitty gritty details of those, but that's sufficient. So that's kind of our primary mission. Our secondary missions are a think tank because there is no centralized repository of white papers and studies for domestic small town law enforcement. There's a lot of good white papers in the law enforcement world that's spread out across dozens or hundreds of criminal justice programs at different colleges, and almost all of them focus on mid-sized and large agencies. 70% of the police departments and sheriff's offices in the United States serve less than 10,000 residents. So our needs in these agencies and the agencies like you work at now are are wholly different than a mid-size or a large-size agency. So having a mechanism to gather the data, do the studies, publish the white papers, and make it available to those agencies is our second mission. Our third mission is the mission that we executed last week, which is a mobile training team. That's not hopscotch around the country teaching the same thing. That's identifying an agency, figuring out what their guys need within the big five skills that we need, and then customizing something for them, not only to teach them, but to teach them how to mentor and teach their own guys. So that's the kind of class you went through last week with us. We appreciate you guys having us.
Well, we appreciate it.
Uh, and I'm just curious as to a kind of, I won't make you go through the whole sustain, improve, and takeaways, but I'm just interested in your thoughts and your feedback on it, mostly for the public's understanding of what it is that the foundation does.
Uh, so I mean, first and foremost, coming from a larger agency to where I had a lot of resources, a lot of training
Mhm,
and stuff like that. I was, you and I have obviously been in this community for a while. I'd heard about
mhm,
you, but I didn't necessarily know you.
right,
Um, I assumed that you were good to go just because a lot of the people that I knew, you knew, and they spoke
mhm,
very well of you. But I didn't know what we were getting into. I was more than impressed with the training that we received. And
mhm,
not only the instruction, the way it was set up, there was a crawl, walk, run phase for everybody there. So it didn't matter, if you've got a guy that's up here in experience and a guy that just got out of SWAT school or hasn't even been to a basic SWAT school yet, it was very attainable information for every
mhm,
level. I didn't
right,
feel like, just because I had spent time on a full-time team and been in training, I didn't feel like I was wasting reps or
mhm,
just wasting my time. I actually got valued information out of that training, which is, as an instructor, is very difficult to do when you have a broad range of students like that.
mhm,
So that impressed me. Good day on the range. Um, the tactic stuff, back to what you were saying about it's not just you're traveling teaching the same thing over and over. So you technically tailored specific needs to my agency
Mm-hmm.
beforehand, and that was very very beneficial to us because we were talking about reestablishing some SOPs and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and you gave us the whole footprint to do that. To
Mm-hmm.
where you're like, hey, don't look at this as in just an SOP. Like this is a whole system, right?
Right.
And if you do it right the first time, you can adjust it as needed on the
Mm-hmm.
fly.
Right.
I was very impressed with that.
Mm-hmm.
The class as a whole, man. Um, I think everybody that was there took something away from that training. It was provided by the task force, which is huge
Mm-hmm.
because uh, owning a training company, I can tell you, I think there were 10 or 11 of us.
Mm-hmm.
So on average for a 2-day training, normally it's about $350, $400 per student per
Mm-hmm.
day, plus ammo, plus all that stuff. So um, the value that come from that would have cost to go somewhere else and get that and have to pay for it. It would have cost
Mm-hmm.
the agency a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a huge supporter of what you guys are doing at Task Force 70, mainly for that reason, because I have
Mm-hmm.
seen both sides of being a large agency and a small agency, and I've been on the private sector as a training
Mm-hmm.
company as well.
Right.
So I was very pleased. So
Good.
um,
Good.
hopefully
I appreciate that.
yeah,
That's useful to us. Like we think we know what people are gonna
yeah.
um, need, but it's good to know that we're matching it. And
Mhm.
all of that training was provided through the grace of a donor. So
Whoever that
it was
was, thank you.
very appreciated on
Yeah.
our end as well. So it's not enough, and this is opinion. It's not enough to just give somebody something for free. It's got to be something valuable. Otherwise, it's not free. It's costing them their time. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how we're trying to look at this. So we, like I said, we really appreciate you guys taking it seriously. So you brought up that everybody there was a SWAT guy. Uh,
Mhm.
was everybody also a patrol guy or a
Mostly,
detective?
yes. Either a detective or patrol. Yes.
Yeah. So um, something that the public, I think, has a difficult time understanding is how SWAT works. Um, a lot of small town agencies, they're not the agencies, the communities, every American, when they call 911, within 90 seconds, they expect Delta Force to show up. Like, why isn't there helicopters over? There's somebody breaking in my house. Why isn't there helicopters with ninjas fast roping out of it and snipers up on the roof? And like, why isn't any of that happening? That's an instinctual response to the what people have been culturized through movies and television and things like that. The challenge with even large agencies, what do you think your average response time with the state level full-time SWAT team? What do you think
I
the
would say,
average response time was?
I would say at best 2 hours.
That's best case, right? That's
Yeah,
been my
best
experience as
case.
well.
That's
Um,
everybody that a minimum, getting a minimum of people there that
mhm.
we need to be functional as a team.
Right.
So
Exactly. So there's a period of time there. So the way I try to explain it to the public is we have um, plateaus that we reach, right?
yep.
So you call the police,
Hmm.
and depending on where you live, between 90 seconds and 30 minutes, you'll get a cop, right?
Yep.
He's got to either establish order, investigate a crime, or determine what it is, and then call for more resources, right?
Yep.
Is he the one who's going to call in the SWAT team, or is his watch commander going to call his boss, who's then going to call his boss, who's then going to call the chief of police and authorize a SWAT deployment?
Yeah.
So that's
So
how that really works, right?
yeah, it's exactly how it works.
So um, usually in now the agency, I still work there as a reserve, but just came off as full time as a SWAT lieutenant. Um, It was a good from notification to the patrol chain of command, getting fully briefed up because they don't want to deploy. Nobody wants to deploy a team for no reason.
Right.
And that's a legit concern because you're
Mhm.
costing your community money when
Yeah.
you're doing that. And you're putting the public at risk with 12 to 30 SWAT guys running emergency traffic
Hmm.
through your city.
Yeah.
All of those concerns, right? It's a legitimate leadership concern to do I really need a team right now or can patrol manage this, right? So, best response time and the agency, and I'll just call it my agency because it still is a reserve. We had a very smooth system in place. It was about a 15-minute process to get the deployment authorized. And then which is fast
Yeah.
for the
That's about
public
to say
watching. That's very fast.
yeah, that's
Now
quick.
we're a small rural agency, so it's not like we had a bunch of levels in between, me and the chief deputy or the patrol sergeant and the chief deputy, right? So it was unusual in that circumstance, but in small agencies we kind of have that advantage, right? Um, the average response time for us was about an hour and 15 minutes, and that's in our county.
Yeah.
If we were going to another county, you were at a state police agency, you have much longer response times. Plus, you got to get armor there, you got to get electronic and negotiation equipment there, you've got all of those things. So, we have a period of time when the crime is still occurring. Uh, all of that time is covered by whoever is on duty, right?
Patrol.
My concern has always been, and part of the main things that drove me a couple years ago to start really drilling down on how to do this, this training that we're doing through the foundation. What are we doing with 90 seconds to an hour and a half? What are we doing there? Especially in small agencies, 70% of the law enforcement agencies at best are going to have two guys on duty.
Yep.
How are two guys going to lock down a barricade, a shooting, a, violent domestic, those kinds of things where you have the victim rescued, but you have a suspect who's refusing to come out? All of those things, you can't just sit on it. You've got to manage that incident and you have to the 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 danger I have observed through study is that the longer we sit with no action, the more in control the suspect
Yep.
feels, the bad guy
Yep.
feels.
Yep.
And then it takes more force to overcome that momentum when the whatever follow-on support team arrives, right? I've
Yep.
been the SWAT guy arriving, and what do you mean you haven't talked to the guy? Why it's been an hour and 45 minutes. Why haven't we even talked to this dude?
Yep.
Why haven't we talked him out of the house? And then as soon as we get there, the armored car or the armored vehicle lights up the PA and he walks right out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a thing. So,
Yeah.
not saying it's every incident, but how do we maximize, or what we're trying to focus on is how do we maximize the small town guys or especially the rural guys. They're so far away from everything, spotty radio service, sometimes no
Mhm.
cell. How do we manage those things to maximum effect to the benefit of the public in that period of time in between? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I guess again, I wasted a bunch of words
No,
to
you're
say.
good.
Um, how what are some of the challenges you see for small agencies um, outside of the big five that I've spoken about? What are some of the things that we can be doing outside of the foundation? We know kind of we've done a lot of study. We know what we need to do for the foundation. What are some other ways that we can be either us, other cops, or even the public? How can we be supporting these small agencies so that they can more rapidly and effectively? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
Oh, you're
uh,
good.
what kind of ways? Like for this is just an example, but like I'm just a go civilian, I take, I like shooting. Would it be valuable for me to take a tactics class in case a guy's by himself? Just things like that. Doesn't have to be shooting, but
Yeah.
those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
So as far as the public goes, I'll start with them. I think it is law enforcement is here for a reason, yes, but at the end of the
Hmm.
day, me as a civilian, as a man, as the man of my household, my
Hmm.
family's safety is my responsibility. So, and I'll
Exactly.
segue into something else here in a minute, but
Hmm.
that's kind of a lot of the training that I have did come
Hmm.
from agencies, and a lot of the training that I have I paid for on my own just to
Hmm.
be a better protector for my family. And
Right.
then a byproduct of that was me being a better protector for other people's families or the public, right?
Hmm.
So I think it's a responsibility thing, you know, as a man or as
Hmm.
a woman, protecting your children, protecting the people you love, right?
Right.
Whether that's medical training or, you know, firearms training or doing jujitsu, whatever that may
Hmm.
be. So taking some responsibility and just getting out there and seeking more information,
Hmm.
especially if you're somebody on a church security team,
Hmm.
you know, an executive protection team for a large scale business or something like that.
Hmm.
The patrol side of things, I think complacency is huge, and I've been guilty of
Hmm.
it in the past. You know, I've gotten complacent because at these smaller level agencies, you know, it's not going to happen until it does. And then when it happens, you
Hmm.
start getting serious about the training, and then it starts to kind of dwindle down again. So
Hmm.
just staying in that mindset of like, hey, you know,
Hmm.
we're not going to go post apocalyptic here, but let's just do a little bit of something every day to try and train for something that may happen. And then you have to weigh probability versus possibility, you know.
Right.
Um, does it benefit me more to go get a concealed carry gun and a good concealed carry holster and do some dry fire stuff and take a class? Or do I
Hmm.
need to go out here and buy 10 rifles and some night vision and stuff for something that's probably never going to happen, if that makes sense?
Right.
In
It
law
does.
enforcement, we're guilty about that stuff too.
Hmm.
Something that I thought that was very interesting. I went to a class, and I hope you don't care, but I'm going to name the company.
No, please.
Centrifuge training.
Hmm.
Done a lot of vehicle stuff, a lot of their instructor courses,
Hmm.
and Blake Buchanan over there made a really good point. He actually is still active with a small agency where
Hmm.
he's from,
Right.
and he talked about doing small training iterations, 15, 20 minutes at a time during shift change. He's
Hmm.
like, man, my people have gained so much just from little small increments of training,
Hmm.
whether it be taser or a little bit of low light stuff or
Hmm.
some dry fire, whatever. He's like, man, the amount of ground he's covered doing
Hmm.
that versus, hey, I've got to block out 8 hours this month and everybody's got to
Hmm.
come do this.
Right.
So I think that may be something we may want to look at as far as like what can we do, even if you're not an instructor, try and bring something to the table. If it's report
Hmm.
writing, if it's constitutional knowledge, right?
Hmm.
Most of the money that comes from lawsuits in our profession come from bad
Hmm.
constitutional decisions.
Hmm.
So who's the best guy on my shift or at our agency that does that? And hey, let's spend 15 minutes with each shift this week, just going over
Right.
some stuff.
Right.
Then next month, let's pick something else. So I
Hmm.
think that is a way. It doesn't cost a whole lot of time, doesn't cost a whole
Hmm.
lot of money. And then for the larger scale things, stuff like
Hmm.
Task Force 70 and stuff like
Hmm.
that, we can just start compounding on those things. So
Right.
that would
And
be
that's,
my opinion.
yeah, absolutely. That's actually one of the mentorship functions of the task forces. While they are with us, we are teaching them how to do hip pocket training.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you're getting 50 hours of all of these big five, right? And they're taught and they walk away with the documentation and the actual stuff they need to teach it 5 minutes at a time. And the reason we're doing that is the persistence beats duration in all physical activity training.
Yeah.
So if somebody lifts weights, they always have better gains when they're doing small amounts frequently than they're doing big amounts infrequently.
Yep.
And that's partially a mind body interaction issue. and it's also a cerebral cortex issue. So we're trying to drive knowledge and skills from the cerebral cortex into their middle brain. And the only way to do that is persistence, and that persistence has to have sleep cycles between it to be truly retained. So that's your point is exactly on target, because that's one of the things we're trying to encourage, even if somebody never comes to a TF70 class, because
Mhm.
it's full and we can't gather any more resourcing to send them or to get them here. One of the things they will get from us is the podcasts like this. There'll be a bunch of hip pocket training stuff that they
Yeah.
can pass on, right? So the instructorism has turned into a credentialing gate, um, in a political sense, and it's not healthy.
Yeah.
So
It's not.
you don't have to be a certified state. The state doesn't have to bless you teaching something to your guys. Like,
Right.
now, don't teach dumb shit. Like,
Yeah.
you should be teaching something worth a snot.
Right.
Sorry for that,
No,
public,
you're
but
good.
um, like, you should be teaching solid stuff. It doesn't have to be exactly what everybody else teaches. It's appropriate to your jurisdiction, to your community. That's a
Mhm.
big piece of, especially tactics training and uh, traffic stop training,
Mhm.
is taught at a national level, and it is completely dependent upon the local community. There are
Yeah.
some things that we would do when I worked in a large agency that would absolutely rightfully get an officer fired to do in a
Mhm.
small agency,
Absolutely.
on the regular, right?
Yeah.
Doing that kind of thing all the time. Where you and I live on the local news, we're forever seeing some cop being an a-hole to a member of the public on traffic stop in their body cam footage.
Yeah.
That would be completely appropriate in Detroit. It is
Yeah.
not appropriate here.
It's just how
And
you speak with people there. Yeah.
right. And that is one of the many challenges of credentializing
Hmm.
instructor programs. Almost all of it is driven centrally from Department of Justice or a branch thereof.
Hmm.
And, well, within case law, this is what makes the most sense. So this is how you should do it. That doesn't work in especially rural jurisdictions.
Yeah.
Just case law is precedence. It's
Hmm.
what it sets our bounds. It's not the orders of what we should be doing.
Right.
Just because the Weems says I can pull a guy out of his pickup truck does not mean I should be pulling that dude out of his pickup truck,
Right.
especially in a local jurisdiction. Like, know the law, know the Constitution first, and because that underpins what we do, but knowing what is appropriate and what is best for the community where you work. Um, it, I'm not going to start the rant, but there is a
Yeah.
huge problem with what's best for me. What like the thing that drives me nuts in law enforcement is we're coming home. Given the priority of life, sometimes that's not what's going to happen if we're doing it
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Cops get hurt doing the right thing.
Yep.
So, depending on the circumstance and the priority of life, there would I gladly trade my life for a 5-year-old child's? Yes,
Absolutely.
that is
Yes.
what we do.
Yep.
So, the centralization and the credentialing of law enforcement instruction is a problem that we're not going to be able to fix, because it's a natural tendency of any bureaucracy to create that. What
Yep.
we're trying to do, and what I know you already do, and what a lot of great trainers do, is they're already kind of pulling guys back into what's right for you, right?
Yeah.
What's right for your jurisdiction. So I just really appreciate the the angle that you took on that, because in my opinion, that's exactly where we should be. Like,
Yeah.
what's right for us, and the best way to do that is small repetitious training. Like,
Yep.
not everybody has to be a Delta Ninja lerp instructor, right,
Yeah. Yep.
to teach traffic stops or how to do a DUI investigation, or like all the skills that are also dying away because of the demographics of the law enforcement trade. So that's a whole nother episode that we'll have to
We
talk
can
about at
talk
some
3
point.
hours on that one.
Oh yeah, the demographics are broken for law
Yeah.
enforcement, and they will be for about another 11 years, and then I
Yeah.
suspect things will pick back up. But anyway, What I'd like to talk about now, Zach, is something that has been a persistent issue for a long time, and it's partially a problem of on our side on law enforcement culture, and it's partially an issue within the constitutionalist community. And I say constitutionalist, I am a constitutionalist. I believe that is our bedrock of everything that we do as Americans, not just as a law enforcement officer. There is a long term um, issue with what is perceived to be the militarization of the police. So it's a tight topic, it's lots of emotion involved in a small percentage of the population. There's a large percent of the population who just aren't comfortable with aggressive law enforcement. Um, they understand intellectually that the preamble of the Constitution, the first paragraph of the Constitution, lays out our responsibility as an Article 2 power as law enforcement to ensure domestic tranquility. And they understand that there's circumstances where some level of aggression is necessary. It's one of those things that it has always been the case that when the public sees a law enforcement officer using force, it makes them uncomfortable until it's their neighborhood and somebody is attacking people and we beat them up and take them to jail. They love it, right? They're like, why didn't you use more force? So that's always been in American society. That has always been the case. Um, with the prevalence of social media or the creation of social media and its ability to communicate complex concepts in a very uncomplicated, simplistic way. One of the challenges that I get hit with pretty frequently when I talk to members of the public is, they're not comfortable with the militarization of police. And what they mean, I think, is they're not comfortable with the application of what they perceive to be military uniforms, military equipment to law enforcement functions. So I have a opinion that um, I won't. I'm really interested in your opinion without polluting the water too much, but um, I feel like people mistake um, modern equipment with militarization.
Yeah.
The militarization is in the tactics, not in the equipment.
Yeah.
Um, what I'm interested in your opinions on that. Again, I'm not trying to I was trying intentionally not to shade the discussion, but I am interested, especially where you came from. Your full-time team got that complaint. Um, you guys were a very good team and very constitutionally active team. Like you guys were
Yeah.
very within the bounds of the Constitution as I saw it, and they still are. I'm curious. I know the kinds of complaints that you guys would get, so I'm
Yeah.
interested in your opinion on that topic.
So I have a very strong opinion on
Mm-hmm.
the gear and the training aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been my experience in the studying that I've done and just things that I've seen in my 18 years of law enforcement that the higher level of training someone has in our profession
Mm-hmm.
equals a higher level of control during stressful situations most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
which decreases risk and liability to the
Mm-hmm.
officers and the public, right? So the lower level of training someone has, just to
Mm-hmm.
break this down into super simple terms,
Mm-hmm.
it places a higher level of fear in someone. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that level of fear is what causes people to use excessive force or
Mm-hmm.
make bad decisions because they don't have the level of training and they're in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
Survival mode is a bad place to be in our
Mm-hmm.
profession because we lose control.
Right.
Natural human behavior is not the best tool we have. Knowledge is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, and it's the same thing with equipment, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
if it is your family, if it's my kid that needs rescued,
Mm-hmm.
I do want SEAL Team 6 to show up, man. And I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm not going to get that, but I want a guy that's running a dependable rifle. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
if he's in blue jeans and, Chuck Taylors or Vans. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care if he's in a uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a large misconception on this too. And I spoke very heavily on this when I was at my prior agency.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference in looking professional and being professional. Now,
Mm-hmm.
part of being professional is looking professional,
Mm-hmm.
but just because you look professional does not mean that you can conduct yourself in a professional manner in every situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm very strongly opinionated on both of those things,
Mm-hmm.
mainly the training piece, but the gear piece too.
Mm-hmm.
If if somebody's barricaded that's hurt someone or they're a threat to the
Mm-hmm.
public, breaching tools, right? Whether it be a
Mm-hmm.
Bearcat with a breaching pole on the front,
Mm-hmm.
or a breach pole, a bang pole, or
Mm-hmm.
explosive charges, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can't help you or anyone else if we can't breach the door. That's all there is to
Yep.
it. So yes, we do
Yep.
have to use some of those tools that come from the military and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there again, like we were talking about earlier, that's where it's important on us to be like, hey, the military does this really well. This could work for civilian,
Mm-hmm.
environment. This doesn't work well there, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be the Constitution, or whatever. We can't
Mm-hmm.
use that.
Right.
So I think it's just there's a large misconception there. I think
Mm-hmm.
we need to do a better job of educating the public.
Mm-hmm.
And social media is difficult, right? Because everybody's an
Mm-hmm.
expert.
Right. Oh,
Um,
let me tell you.
Yeah, but maybe that's where, and I understand time is a huge thing,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe that's where, like, hey, we need to sit down and we need to educate the public. We've gotten a couple of
Mm-hmm.
complaints on the Bearcats coming through
Mm-hmm.
the city, and everybody's getting
Mm-hmm.
worried. It's an armored vehicle, or the guys are
Mm-hmm.
wearing, you Ranger green cry pants and camo. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I understand you have a valid complaint, but let's have a conversation with the public and say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is why.
Mm-hmm.
If you perceive this to be this way, it's actually this way. And
Right.
you're never gonna make everybody happy, but maybe
Right.
that's something we need to do just to make that perception just a little bit
Mm-hmm.
better.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things, the smaller the community, the more likely the complaint.
Yep.
And it's not the specific thing. As I've studied this pretty heavily, preparing for getting the foundation intellectually where it needed to be able to be successful for what the public actually needs. The whole point of any nonprofit is to benefit the public, right? So
Right. Right.
studying this uh, fairly fairly deeply, the generator of complaints is something different,
Right.
meaning your deputies have been dressed the same since 19 tickety 2.
Yeah.
And now they've always looked, they've always worn a tie, or they've always worn a trooper hat, or they've always, they've worn all their equipment on their belt or whatever, right? And you guys just gave them all these military vests is how I most
Mhm.
often hear it referred to. And this is more predominantly a problem in small jurisdictions, the
Yeah.
TF70 type agencies, right? So why are they wearing a ninja vest? Was
Hmm.
the complaint I've gotten a bunch
Yeah.
in our community, and I've heard it in other communities. Well, the reason for that is a concealable piece of body armor doesn't cover as much. It
Hmm.
also creates more back injuries for the officers that your tax dollars are going to have to pay for.
Hmm.
In 25 years, we're going to be buying that guy 2 back surgeries, and
Yeah.
he's never going to walk right again because that concealment body armor is not designed for ergonomics. It's designed to be concealed. So
Hmm.
that's why he needs to wear the armor on the outside of his uniform. Also, the equipment he uses, the more of it that's on his belt, the more back injuries he's going to have, especially in a fight. The
Hmm.
more likely an injury to his back is. So that's why we need as much of that stuff up on his vest as we can possibly get. When they're ambushed, over 60% of the time they're ambushed inside their car.
Hmm.
So they need to be able to get that equipment while they're sitting down. That all of those layers of explanation are important. Um, it's Also, probably starting the conversation with, let me tell you what militarization actually means.
Yeah.
Militarization is the application of force unconstitutionally inside the
Mhm.
United States. The military
Yep.
does things, and I've worked overseas. They do things overseas that we would not do here.
Right.
And part of the reason for that is the Constitution does not apply to Iraqi citizens. Like,
Right.
that's not how we work. So
Yeah.
just educating them on that, and then educating ourselves on, I need this training. The guy who I think provides it the best is this XY Wazoo Delta Ninja Alert guy.
Hmm.
Awesome. Like, he's the best at teaching that skill. Am I getting a skill training, or am I getting a procedure and capability training?
Right.
Sometimes almost all skill training that the guys get from military uh, channels is excellent. It's what we need, right? Those
Hmm.
skills. The
Hmm.
guys also need to educate themselves, if they're not already, on the Constitution and the application of force and all of those factors. What we don't need is, and there's not a lot, but there's some of the military trainers who will show up to train a department and knife hand. And you guys are none of you are as cool as I am.
Yeah.
You guys are all a poor excuse for, whatever, ninja unit I came from. None of you guys would be accept. Yeah, we know. Like,
Yeah.
that's not why you're here. So
Right.
educating our tribe, in addition to educating the public, is one of the reasons for the public nature of the communication that the foundation needs to do. So
Absolutely.
um, I I'm very I'm I'm grateful for your opinion on the militarization thing, and I suspect that because you and I share the opinion on that it's not the equipment, it's the tactics and the tone, right?
Right. Yeah.
That offend the public. I think the vast majority of trainers agree with us that
I
the
do too.
problem
Yeah.
is all of us are doing a bad job communicating that to the public. So,
Yeah.
uh, giving the public an insight into, this is what we're actually doing, and this is the training, the constitutional training that we're doing to mitigate that a little bit. And we always have an open door. So
Yeah.
that's a good. Um, I think that's an important thing. The smaller the community, the more important it is. So
Yeah.
that's excellent.
Absolutely.
So, do you have any uh, topics or things that you'd like to cover before we wrap it up?
The main thing is putting an emphasis back on patrol, the
Hmm.
patrol level stuff.
Yep.
I come up in patrol thinking that SWAT was like the end all be all. That's the
Hmm.
coolest thing I'll ever do. And now that I've been through that, like, it is a really
Hmm.
cool job.
Right.
But knowing what I know now, a tactical patrolman is the
Hmm.
most valuable asset to any agency. It's the
Hmm.
lifeblood of the department because if you pay attention to what is going on across the nation,
Hmm.
most of your hostage rescues right now
Hmm.
are being performed by patrol officers.
Hmm.
Uh,
82% plus
yep.
within 90
And
seconds of discovery.
exactly. So it's no longer a thing. SWAT, there's still some instances where it's handled by SWAT after a
Hmm.
standoff or whatever. But what's most probable? We can go about what's possible all day long. What is probable? Another thing that the centrifuge guys say is it's not what if, it's what is. What is
Hmm.
actually happening? And let's
Right.
start, making a plan for that.
Hmm. Right.
This piece is for the public.
Hmm.
Just to put things into context for law enforcement, essentially what we've done to our law enforcement over the years is we've sent them to a basic academy,
Hmm.
and then we have pretty much told them you are prepared after this academy and your FTO process to handle anything life throws at you.
Hmm.
Then 5 years down the road, there's not been any amount of follow-up training that's happened. So essentially what we've done for them is we have sent them to play a game in the Super Bowl,
Hmm.
and they went to a training camp, little 12-week training camp
Hmm.
7 years ago. You know,
Yep.
that just to put it into context for the public, that's
Hmm.
what we're doing to cops. And that's why,
Hmm.
in my opinion,
Hmm.
that's why the bad decisions are being made, is
Hmm.
because there's been no follow-up training.
Right.
We've conducted this check the box thing, and
Hmm.
we said we trained them, but did we actually set them up for success?
Hmm. And
So
did we maintain that training through repetition?
exactly, exactly. So I just wanted to speak on that a little bit, you know,
Hmm.
and it's an effort on both pieces, right? If you're a
Hmm.
cop, especially on patrol, seek
Hmm.
training, man. Like,
Right.
don't go out here and buy 10 pistols. You know, you don't need 10
Right.
pistols. Outfit one really good pistol. If your agency lets you
Hmm.
carry your own, outfit one, get really freaking good with it, and then spend money on
Hmm.
ammo and training. Um,
Right.
I can't speak
Right.
about that enough. And that's in anything, man.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah.
that's my very strong opinion on that.
I love your perspective on that because that is the problem, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that any agencies are messed up. It's just the
Right.
culture that has been developed through the FBI National Academy and the
Yeah.
training officers associations in all 50 states
Yeah.
is bureaucracy seeks a checkbox.
Yeah.
That's what it wants to do.
Yeah.
What the what we can take from the military as law enforcement, the most valuable thing we can learn from the military is how General Marshall and General Eisenhower turned around the Army before the Second World War, which was persistent training.
Yeah.
That's what they brought. There is an NCO's job in the military is to train his guys.
Hmm.
We have lost that in the law enforcement world through a couple of things, right? Working in the same agency for 30 years leads to a natural cultural complacency.
Yeah.
We've all known each other for 30 years. Like
Hmm.
half of us went to the academy together.
Yeah.
We all know what we know, and we trust everybody. We trust our teammates implicitly. And there is a subconscious tendency especially the interaction of men, in that to suggest improving another person's skills is an insult.
Right.
That's a Western cultural thing,
Yeah.
where if you as a peer walk in and say, "Hey guys, I really want to teach a let's talk about some pull door breaching today." After briefing, after the calls die down at 11 or 12 at night, let's meet up at that old abandoned building and let's practice like how we're going to do pull door breaching, right?
Yeah.
Which is different than push door breaching. 50% of those, well, almost all those dudes that he tells that to are going to subconsciously or consciously think, go pound sand. I know how to
Yeah.
do that. What,
Yeah.
you think I'm a moron? We've worked
Yeah.
together for 10 years. That is a cultural problem on
Yeah.
our part. And it's one of the many things we're trying to touch with the foundation, but that's a far more important problem, or not problem, but challenge for us to address kind of through influencers and individual influential people within agencies. Like, we need to be doing this all the time. Like, repetition is a thing. And like you said, Larry Vickers was the first person I heard that from, talking to Larry privately and then training with him. Like, you're getting ready for the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
You're in the JV uh, football camp,
Yeah.
and with 90 seconds notice, you're playing a down in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Like, the cops in Florida who tracked down the dude who was going to take a shot at the president at the golf course.
Hmm.
Did those guys go 10-8 thinking, we're going to we're going to find, do an investigation, which they did, not Secret Service,
Hmm.
find the guy and get him stopped and then take him into custody safely so that he lives, because
Hmm.
we've wanted that guy alive, right?
Yeah.
They did that on their own with no notice.
Yeah.
That is solid
That's
police work.
performance. Yeah.
Like, and that was not an accident.
Yeah.
Like, the United States is not an accident. How the country run is not an accident. Somebody had to sit down at that sheriff's office. I don't remember which sheriff's office it is, but they did a phenomenal job, because that takes years to build that type of competency. And
Yep.
that agency did a good job. and they are a large agency. And as I spoke about in the beginning of our chat today, big agencies and even mid-sized agencies are doing so much better than they were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We've left the small agencies behind.
Hmm.
And that's what we're going to be focusing on.
Yeah.
And I've said it a bunch of times publicly already, and hopefully I'll keep hammering it. The goal here is not for there to be one foundation. The
Yeah.
goal is for somebody else to find the big five things like we did for what they specialize in. I guarantee you there's a dude who was a detective in a small town for 20 years who has mastered property theft investigation cases, and there ain't a single small town patrol officer who knows how to do a proper property theft investigation.
Yep.
Like, that needs to happen
Yep.
because life, liberty, and property are what we're responsible for, right? So anyway, I'm kind of going off track, but yeah, I appreciate your take on that. I think it's super important. So on that note, I'd love to have you back again, Zach, and I know that
Absolutely.
we'll be talking a lot, but
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time today, very much, and I know
Yeah.
the public does as well. Um, Guys, for the audience out there, we appreciate you guys watching. We appreciate your help and your support through donations already, and we always appreciate your support. So if you're not supporting us now, you can support us in as small of a way as sharing this. If you thought it was worth something, if you didn't, how about, if you didn't like it, mind your own business. Don't worry about it. But if you did like it, you think it's valuable, or you think that others should support us, or if you're willing to support us, share it. Please like, subscribe, do all that stuff. That's all important. If you're interested in finding out more, visit us at TF, that's like Task Force 7070.org. You can donate there, or you can just find out more about us and tell other people, whichever one seems most appropriate for you. The types of donations that we need are small donations frequently. So all we're asking for is 20 bucks a month. It's probably less than you spend on coffee. I hate that analogy when I watch charity TV shows, or commercials, but I understand why they do it, because it's what matters. The small, persistent donations are what let us train these guys who need it. So, like we did with your team. So, Zach, we appreciate you very much, and we thank you, and we'll see you all next time.